Hey, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Science with Mama J. Today we're supposed to be reviewing for a test. So those of you who are here, welcome. I'm going to basically answer any questions that you may have and go ahead and just, go over some concepts that you should know. Basically, the concepts that we talked about, understanding coefficients and subscripts. That is really important for you to understand. The Bohr model, the Lewis structure, how to balance an equation. All of those are things that we've gone over in class. Well, balancing equations we're going to get to, but the Bohr model, the Lewis structure, understanding how to read the periodic table, all of those are things that you should understand and get ready for in terms of the test. So if you have any questions, I'm looking to basically take questions at the moment. I see that there are a couple of you in here right now. If you can just go ahead and kind of wave in the chat box, let me know what it is that you could use some assistance with, and we'll go from there. One of the things that I did notice, and I am going to mention it, is why hydrogen should be placed in the first group as opposed to the seventh group. Well, if you look at hydrogen, hydrogen behaves like the first group. Behavior versus appearance is what's important here, okay? Elements are placed in the periodic table where they're placed based on their behavior. They're based on the characteristics that they exhibit. So although hydrogen does form diatomic molecules, and it is a gas, okay, that is not a reason to place it in, well, it refutes putting it in the first group. It is a reason for putting it in the seventh group, okay? However, if you look at its behavior, if you look at its behavior, what hydrogen does is it moves to the negative electrode just like everything else in the first group. Okay, in addition to moving to the negative electrode, it also it creates positive hydrogen ions, which is why it moves to the negative electrode, and it also bonds with chlorine at the same atomic ratio as sodium and everything else in group 1. Okay, so its bonding ratio with chlorine, as well as its ability to move to the negative electrode, just like everything else in group 1, provides a really strong case for placing it in group 1. So that was a concern that a lot of people had. So I wanted to go ahead and clear that up a little bit. I see a few more people have come in. Are there any questions? If you can please go ahead and put them in the chat box. If you can wave hello as well. But really, the purpose of a review session is to answer any last minute questions that you have. And I'm trying to just come up with any concepts that you would want to go over in regards to the test. Okay. Also, in addition to that question, some of the things that I noticed that we were doing during the review in class, I did notice that some individuals were not reading the charts correctly. Two big questions that stood out to me is a question with the periodic table. Okay. Hello, the questions with the periodic table that were a huge concern to me basically weren't reading the question completely from beginning to end. So this particular question, it had 4 letters in the periodic table, and those 4 letters, it was W, X, Y, and Z. And what I noticed was that these 4 letters, part of the answers were correct, part of them were incorrect, and some were reading the beginning, which were right, but not reading completely through to the end. For example, groups 6 and 7 do form negative bonds, okay, negative ions, but when they form negative ions, okay, I'll get to your question in just one second. Thank you for posing it. When they do form negative ions, they form it by gaining electrons, not losing electrons. So that little bit right there is, where some people were missing out. They saw, oh yes, they form negative ions, and said that was the answer. No, you never have to memorize a periodic table. You will always have a copy of the periodic table available to you. You shouldn't be worried about memorizing the periodic table. There's just way too much information there. So, it was things like, little things like that, that a noble gas forms positive cations. No, noble gases do not form positive cations. Okay, that's pretty cool. So these are things that you have to look at. My biggest concern is actually reading the question thoroughly. The other one, the table, where you had to pick what characteristics you could find and what characteristics you couldn't find based on what was in the table. And it was with substances B and C. Well, it said B and C, so you didn't have to worry about anything else on the table. So looking at what characteristics were in there, identifying what the characteristics were, and thinking what senses you could use in order to be able to identify whether, and separate those elements. Okay, are there any questions? Okay, we got a question about the periodic table. Are there any other questions in regards to the test? I did check Canvas. I didn't see any questions. You're very welcome. I didn't see any questions in Canvas. Okay, I'm seeing maybe one that came through now. Okay. So no questions. And I didn't receive any questions through messaging either. Is there anyone that has a question in regards to the test? Now is definitely the time to ask. I did go over some of the more important issues that I've seen. Reading the questions has been really the biggest issue that I've seen so far. Now's the time. Okay, so I really don't have anything else to go over in regards to the test. I really would have liked to have had more questions, but no one is posing them. So if you do have any questions, you may want to come see me earlier in the day tomorrow. Otherwise, I will definitely see you tomorrow. Okay? Take care, guys. I hope you have a wonderful day. Bye. You have a question, but you can't remember it? Send it to me through Canvas or send it to me through Google Voice and I'll answer it for you. Probably Google Voice is better. Just about everything that's on that review sheet that I gave you. So some of the stuff you haven't seen before, but I explained in detail some of the things that we went over, and what I went over earlier. That's pretty much what's going to be on the test. That's why I gave you that review sheet. That review sheet was supposed to mirror the style of questions. Okay. Okay, what's your question? Yes. You should know, you should understand reactivities, okay? And the periodic table has a relatively decent key. It's probably not going to ask you specifically alkaline earth, but you should know groups 1, 2, 6, 7, and 8. You should know those well. Okay? All right, guys. Unless there are any other questions, I'm going to go. I hope that you're very welcome. And like I said, if you have any other questions, just please go ahead and send me a message and I'll answer it to the best of my ability, or I'll catch up with you tomorrow and answer it for you before your test. Okay? Bye, guys. You're very welcome. Take care.